So good afternoon everyone. I'm Kimberly Duque and I'm the reporter for today's discussion. So we are now on the values, attitude, and job satisfaction. So my report is about attitude. So most of us have heard the phrase attitude is everything. Well, it's absolutely true. How we react, what we do or say, all depends on our attitude. So our attitude can be seen in our character, how we approach things, what our beliefs are, or our perspective on issues, how we approach life, our position on topics, basically our view on life. So in short, lahat ng ito is influence in our attitude. So lahat tayo may mga attitude towards everything, but the difference is that whether our attitude is positive or negative. So there are so many things in life that we have a little control over, such as the political environment, so the weather, economy, and others. So hindi natin makontrol kung bakit, for example, mainit sa labas or yung pagtaas ng mga bilihin, diba? But one of the few things that we can always control is our attitude. We can control our attitude, our way of responding, or our behavior towards things. So each and every moment, every day, you decide kung ano ba yung attitude mo about yourself, about your job, family, and other responsibilities. So attitude influence actions. So let's define more about attitude. So the first definition is attitude is a general enduring positive or negative feeling towards some person, object, or issue. So sometimes we are saying na may attitude itong taong to, and pag sinabi nating may attitude, we think about negative attitude. But in here, attitude is either positive or negative on the way we think or feels about something. So it about person, object, or issue. So the second definition is attitude is an association between an object and an evolution in memory. So evaluation is the central to human experience. First, we distinguish between evaluations of objects like the person, place, or things, and the evaluation of attributes. So these are the dimension, traits, and characteristics. Then we further distinguish between summarized attribute preferences. So for example, yung object is yung mga matatamis. So yung characteristic nito is sweetness for dicks, liking for desserts. And the third definition is attitude is a learned internal response to a given stimulus resulting in observable behavior. So for example, one of your family member have a diabetic because of liking sweets. So your learning is that you will avoid eating sweets kasi that is your observation. So the question is, how do your attitude affect the workplace? So attitude in the workplace can influence a company's productivity and even its reputation and culture. And as a result, a good attitude at work can actually help the business succeed, so which can lead to promotions and other incentives. But the bad attitude can lead to or result in ito yung common na stress in the workplace, which affects your physical and mental health. So, kung yung norms sa isang organization is poor attitude, the environment can become toxic and can result in a high employee turnover and dissatisfaction. So dito kung na feel ng isang employee na toxic na yung work, ayun na, they're thinking to job burnout or hindi na sila magiging masaya sa workplace. There's no mistaking the benefits of having employees with a good attitude in the workplace because ito yung mga taong they work faster, smarter, and provide a great customer experience. Kasi kung ikaw mismo wala kang good attitude, paano ka makikipag-usap sa customer or your internal customer? So hindi ka magkakaroon ng great customer experience kapag wala kang good attitude. So, as what Charles Swindoll said, attitude is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home. So, attitude structure can be described in terms of three components. So, these are the components of attitude. So, the first one, dito sa cognitive components. So, yung example dito, I believe spiders are dangerous. So, yun yung belief mo, na yung spiders are dangerous. And then, dito sa affective component, ito na yung feelings, person's feelings, emotions. And yung example dito is, I am scared of spiders. So, yun na yung effect sa'yo or yung feeling mo na scared ka sa spiders. And yung behavior mo, yung magiging attitude mo or magiging action mo is, I will avoid spiders and scream if I see one. So, yun yung kanilang difference. So, let's define more about these components. So, cognitive component of attitude is related to value statement. It consists of belief, ideas, values, and other information that an individual may possess or has faith in. So, it is the opinion or belief segment of an attitude. It refers to the part of attitude which is related in general knowledge of a person. So, this come to, like for example, in generalities or stereotypes, such as smoking is harmful to health. So, yun yung generalization. So, for example, you're working for a long time but you come up to the conclusion kasi hindi pa nag-increase yung salary mo. So, your statement will be in the cognitive component is my salary or my pay is low. Then, dito naman sa next, affective components is related to a person's feelings about another person, which may be positive, negative, or neutral. So, ito yung emotion or feeling. So, yung magiging affect nito sa'yo is, dahil may pay is low dun sa cognitive, sa affective naman is, I am angry over how little I'm paid. So, ito na yung yung feelings mo na ikaw na ay angry kasi mababa yung iyong sahod. And affective component can lead to behavioral outcomes. So, the next component is behavioral component. So it is related to impact of various situations or objects that lead to individuals' behavior based on cognitive and affective components. So it is refers to the intention, or it is your behave, how you act in a certain way towards someone or something. So yung behavioral mo na nito is, I am going to look for another job that pays better. So yun na yung magiging behavioral component of attitude mo, na maghahanap ka ng ibang job that pays better or may mas magandang salary. Ayan, so another example is that dito sa cognitive or evaluation is, my supervisor gave a promotion to a coworker who deserved it less than me. So yung magiging cognitive attitude mo is, my supervisor is unfair. So yun yung cognitive or evaluation components. And then yung affective, yung magiging feelings mo na is, ito na yung I dislike my supervisor. So yun na yung affect sa'yo. Yun na yung magiging attitude mo na you dislike your supervisor. And yung behavior mo or yung magiging action mo is, I'm looking for other work. I've complained about my supervisor to anyone who would listen. So yun na yung magiging behavior mo kapag meron kang negative attitude, and it also leads to a negative attitude toward supervisor. So we also have theories of attitude formation and change. So yung first is the functional theory. So Katz distinguished 4 types of psychological functions that attitudes meet. So the first one is the instrumental. We develop favorable attitude towards things that aid or reward us. So we want to maximize rewards or maximize penalties. So dito yon sa instrumental. So in other words, purchasing something because it brings forth a specific benefit is one example. So for example, kung mahilig kang mag-basketball, so you will buy yung mga pang sports about basketball, yung mga t-shirts or yung shoes, something na mga ganun. And another example nito is the Apple company can learn from consumers that their utilitarian functions or yung instrumental functions of attitude in many ways. So yung Apple for example, ito yung nagiging bumibili yung mga consumer ng Apple product kasi iniisip nila na yun, reward nila yun kapag bumili sila kasi kung may naka-iPhone ka, 'di ba? It means na high class, something na ganon, or nasa upper class. So the next one is knowledge. Attitudes provide meaningful, structured environment. So attitudes allow consumers to simplify decision-making processes. In other words, consumer attitudes help avoid undesirable situation and approach more desirable situations. So when consumers are brand loyal to a company, it assists them to simplify the decision-making process. So example naman dito is yung companies such as the Visa or MasterCard can benefit from understanding the concept of knowledge function of attitude. So for example, yung mga target individuals ng Visa or MasterCard is yung mga not knowledgeable about credit limit or credit lines, kasi yun yung binibigyan nila lang knowledge about their product. And the next is the value expressive. Express basic values reinforce self-image. So for example, if you are If you view yourself as a Catholic, you can reinforce that image by adopting Catholic beliefs and values. So yung kung ano yung values like your culture or your religion is yun din yung magiging attitude mo, and then yun yung ano mo, yun yung magiging behavior mo. And the last one is the ego defensive. Attitudes work as defense mechanism for consumers. What it is that consumers are enabled to protect themselves in a way from their low self-concept. So for example, dito is yung mga smokers are more likely to ignore the fact that smoking is bad for their health as to continue doing it. So yun yung magiging ego defensive nila. And another example is that those with feelings of inferiority may develop attitude of superiority. So yung dun sa smokers, yung companies such as Marlboro, it would benefit from such attitudes in the variety of different ways or object, but rather by changing the person's underlying motivational and personality needs. So we go now to the learning theory. So yung under ng learning theory, there are several means by which we learn attitude. So the first one is classical conditioning. This is an example of classical conditioning when two stimuli are repeatedly associated. So the child or we learn to respond to them with a similar emotional reaction. So in this case, the stimuli are the attitude topic and the parental emotion. So for example, dito, kapag nagbell na yung may nagbell na yung aso na ay may may pagkain na. So ibig sabihin, kapag nagbell na yung aso is tatakbo na siya and meron siyang pagkain. Like another example is kung may naririnig tayong yung sa ice cream. So yung classical conditioning na natin is may nagbebenta na ng ice cream, yung ganun. So nako-condition na yung mind natin na kapag nangyari yung like for example yung music, ayun na nagkakaroon na tayo ng classical conditioning na may nagbebenta ng ice cream, something like that. So the next is the operant conditioning. Behaviors or attitudes that are followed by positive consequences are reinforced and are more likely to be repeated than our behavior and attitude that are followed by negative consequences. So yung example dito is yung pushing vending machine button. So kapag pinush mo yung vending machine, may lalabas na drinks. And yung when we receive a candy bar, ayan, magkakaroon tayo ng kapag sobra is magkakaroon tayo ng sakit ng ngipin, something like that. So the next one or the last one is the observational conditioning. So the children watch the behavior of others around them and imitate what they see. Ayan, yun yung example. So the next is the types of attitude. We have job satisfaction. It is a collection of positive and or negative feelings that an individual holds toward his or her job. And job involvement, it is undefined with the job, actively participating in it, and considering performance import to self-worth. And the organizational commitment, it is the identifying with a particular situation in its goals and wishing to maintain membership in the organization. So, i-discuss din ito ng ating next reporter about job satisfaction. And that's all. Thank you for listening.